What's up friends, welcome to part 2 of our ultimate walk animation tutorial. If you haven't watched the first part, link in the description below, and let's see how our walk will look like at the end of this advanced blocking stage. In the first part, what we did is what I call high-level blocking. Think of this like a blueprint of what you are going to do with your animation. Now it's time to really dive deep into the blocking and animate the walk itself. Let's go. So if you haven't animated the walk before, you might want to open up the Animator's Survival Kit on the page 108, and actually I would advise reading everything. This whole section devoted to walks is really pure gold. So right now we're concerned just about this. So we animated contact positions, so we need passing positions, we need downs, and we need ups. Now I'm recording this on a different day that I did the first part. And this is very helpful because I can watch my animation with a fresh eye and see if anything is wrong. And I can see here that I forgot to roll the foot, first of all. But most importantly is this action right here. So according to the reference, the rotation starts already between 1 and 17, and I'm not doing any rotations here. So what I will do is I would select the spine and rotate it slightly like that. And I will also drag, not so much, I would just a little bit. I would drag the neck. And then after this, you can see here this move with the hips. So if you watch this line, you can see that the hips are actually rotating up. And the reason why this is happening is because in order to gain the momentum for the spine to rotate forward, hips are actually doing some counter action. And then after this, you can see that they are going back to normal. So let's do this. And then after this, I'm going to select the spine and I'm going to rotate the spine. But I want to be careful about how much I rotate these two controls. Because when I select all three of them and rotate all three of them at once, they are given exact amount of rotation. And I want more rotation here in the middle of the spine. Something like this. And I also want to point out that I'm probably pushing the neck a little bit too much. I like that it's going forward, like in the reference, but I still would want to bring it back just a tiny bit. And I want to do this for this whole section. And I will just grab everything here. And I will do something like that. And rolling off the foot, because I forgot to do this previously, so you can see this roll. And also, I'm going to drag this even more. And also, I think we can start moving. Let's change the camera and just double check how much of the motion we have here. Yeah, the movement starts in Z. Something like that. Alright, so before we do this step, I want to make sure that I have a breakdown here. So between this and this. So we have front. Let's make a breakdown on frame 9. So we need to give a little bit of the motion in the hips here. And then even more. Maybe more with the spine. And here I don't want quite as much of the rotation because the hips are driving this motion, so the spine should be dragging a little bit. So I'm going to drag this a little bit behind. So it's still going forward, but just less. And I'm going to drag not quite as much. Okay, so when you need to do small movements like this, it's better to do them in the graph editor, so we can see what we're doing. Let's go back to the front view. Alright, let's go and see what the hips are doing. In the X, so we can see there is a jump here. This is an anticipation before going screen left. So first of all, I think we need to reduce it, the amount of it. And secondly, you can see there is a rotation in Y happening. It starts here and then it continues here. Let's see if it's happening here. Yeah, it's not happening here, so we're going to add this. Let me see what this, yeah. So we have a little bit of this here. But we don't have it here. So I'm going to add a little bit of this in the graph editor. And maybe I should exaggerate it. Especially this movement. And the spine. We can introduce some of this counter action here. This counter action is happening because the hips are rotating one way and the spine is, because of inertia, it's trying to remain its position. Arms. So the arms are basically dragging. So you can see that they're barely moving forward here. So I'm going to go to the graph editor and just drop it slightly. Maybe even this. Just a tiny bit. So you can see this tiny motion of the head going down. This is happening because the decision has been made to go forward, and then it goes up again. I'm going to make it a little bit lower at the beginning, just so our head is not just bobbling back and forth. You can also see how this roll is a little bit different than your normal foot roll. And probably we'll see this in this angle as well. You see how it's rotating in Z also, so we're going to add that also. And this is our side, right? We can see that the knee is going in a little bit. Okay. Okay, let's make one more breakdown between 17 and 27. And let's find an extreme here. Maybe this, where the foot starts rolling up. So I can do a breakdown here. First of all, we have the movement forward. So I'm going to go to the graph editor and introduce a little bit of the movement forward. And then in X, you can see that there is a lot of motion happening here in X. Probably 80% of the motion in X. So I'm going to do this. And you can also see that I did a little mistake. So here, the hips are going screen left. You're not seeing it much, but I actually have them going screen left as well, but they should go screen right here, right? Because this is where the weight is being freed from this foot onto this foot, and we go screen left, and then we're going screen right. I think we should move everything a little bit to this side. And this will mess up the legs a tiny bit, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the legs. So I'm going to do this only on this frame here. Something like that. And then I will select this foot as well, go to the translation X, and we are going. So on this frame, I'm not going to touch it on this frame, but here, when it starts moving, I'm going to bring it a little bit like that. Yeah, it should be fine now. Okay. From 27 to 38, this is still not your normal walk cycle, right? The walk cycle starts from 38 and it goes to 51. So we need a breakdown probably in the middle. Somewhere around here or here. Let's do here. So I'm going to select everything and I'm going to press the S key. I'm going to go to the Translate Z for the hips and let's see what's going on here. I want it to slow in like that. And in X, this is where it starts to go a little bit back, like that. And in Z, it starts to go this way. Because this leg is going up. And for the spine, I'm going to counter this. But not as much. And then you can see that on this frame, the spine starts to rotate. If you look at this shoulder, you can see that it's rotating. The rotation of the hips should be going the other direction, right? Because the leg starts to move forward. And we're going to counter this. Even more, like that. And you can see here, the hips start to rotate in X, forward. Quite a lot. What I see on the reference is that this part of the spine is still going this way. But eventually it needs to stop and go the other way because the hips continue to rotate forward. So the spine needs to stop in order to balance. So I would say this section is going forward. This section is probably, let me see. I would say it starts to go back, but not quite as much. And this is probably starting to drag as well. And you can see the same thing goes for the neck. And for the head as well. Let's just double check, yeah. And probably this should be right around here. Even lower. Maybe this one not quite as much. Arms. You can see in this motion here, this arm is actually going back a little bit. So if we see on the graph editor here, we need it to go back. And it's also straightening. And then this arm. Turn the image planes off. Should be going back to, let me see, let me double check. Yeah, starts to go back just a tiny bit. And we can drag this part a little bit. Yeah, okay. Going back to reference. this foot. Foot roll. See how low this is? Let's see. Almost touching the floor. Let's check here. And here you can see translation in X. I'm going to have the side go back, and then in X, also checking in the graph editor, you can see that it's doing roughly 60 to 70%, something like this. Just a tiny bit higher. Let me see. Something like that. And you can see this foot is starting to go back, and also I think it's rotating slightly. Yeah, we can also do this slight rotation in Y, the other way, like that, and a foot roll. It's not on the floor, it just starts to go down. Go down a little bit and rotate out. Okay, so going to do something like this, just to bring it back slightly. And for the neck, should drag a tiny bit here. Too much. Drag even more here. And then here I would bring it back a little bit. Now, the interesting part. I'm going to save. And then let's go to the graph editor. And this is a very important part right now. The whole walk from 1 to 148. This is the end of the walk. So this whole distance, the way the hips are going to move is going to affect the overall feel of your animation. So it's very important to establish right now how the hips should move in the Z-axis. So I'm going to the graph editor, and what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to select everything and I'm going to switch it to spline. So this is the part when she is standing, when she's only starting to go, and this is the part of the walk itself. So we should accelerate into the walk, and then after this the walk should feel pretty linear, and then it should start to slow down. And I can see like if I go full screen here and just look at this line, I can see that there are a little bit of the inconsistencies that I want to fix immediately, because if I don't fix them now, all the poses between these keys are going to be affected as well. So what I want to do is I want to probably bring this a little bit back, like that. Probably bring this a little bit back. I just want this part to be as linear as possible. And here I think this is a little bit too much of acceleration, so let's see what's going on. If I move this back a little bit, like that, and then this. Just a tiny bit. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to select this curve. I'm going to snap buffer. I want this part to be as consistent as I can. This slowing down. So after this key, I'm probably going to remove everything here. And I'm going to do something like that. To see this slow down. And maybe going to push it a little bit like that. However, because I moved the keys for the hips around, I'm going to also see if I need to move the keys for the feet as well. So let's go to orthographic view. This is fine. This is a little bit short. So I need to bring this back. And here, I think this is, let's see what the reference is doing here. This is this reference, and I'm temporarily switching this off. Oh, I can leave it on because this is moved. Yeah, there is a little bit of an angle, but I think it's probably going to be too much. So I'm going to bring it back slightly, like that, and this leg. So let's select both of these legs. Travel back. Maybe this leg even more back, like that, so it doesn't overextend. And here also too much. Something like this. And then of course this I need to bring back. I feel like I need to do something like that. So this probably should be pushed. Not this one, but this one should be pushed even here. And this one even here. Oh, not this one. This one. Okay, let's see individually what happens here. So this leg should stay in the same place as it was. So maybe the foot roll is too much. Like that. Let's go to this key and to the final key. So this is unbalanced because we moved the hips. So I'm going to move these here. And actually, because the feet are standing from here to here, I'm going to move everything to a more balanced position, like that. And probably I would still need to push the hips more in this section, more forward, something like this. So 38 to 51, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13. So it's going to be between either 6th or 7th frame for the passing position. 1 2 3 4 5 6. According to this curve, my hips should be here on the translation Z. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the key here. Alright, now we know where the passing position is, so let's go ahead and do this passing position. So here, this is the main weight shift, right? This is happening, so we need to go right, because this foot is off the floor and all the weight is on this foot. So I'm going to select everything, I'm going to go here and I'm going to place the S key. So we don't forget to lock down this pose here. So let's put this foot down. Like that, and then let's free up the weight and push the screen right. Now passing position is higher than the contact position in terms of translation Y for the hips. So I'm going to go up like that. And this foot is rolling, rolling, and rolling, and it starts to go forward like this. This control. Oops. Something like that. Now, another important point is rotation Y for the hips. To keep things a little bit simple, I'm going just to zero it out here, because both legs are very close to each other. Probably pushing this a little bit too much. I also don't want this for the tap of the foot, so I'm going to go with the tap. And I'm going to bring it down a little bit. Different people animate the walks differently. I'm doing this whole section just with a foot roll. I start with a foot roll and then I end with a negative foot roll. So it's easier for me to just polish the foot roll in the graph editor later than to deal with two kinds of rotations. So some people, they zero out foot roll immediately after the leg is off the floor, and then they start to deal with these rotations. I typically don't do this. There are some exceptions depending on the rigs, but I typically just, for simplicity's sake, going with the foot roll only. Let's see. I think I don't need the side control here right now. I'm going to bring this a little bit closer, maybe a little bit, tiny bit higher. Going here, as you can see, there is this rotation happening in the hips. And also, to keep this a little bit simpler right now, I'm going to say this is going to be the extreme for the Z. Something like that. Even push it a little bit more. If I need to bring it down, I can always bring it down. Again, simplicity's sake, rotation Y for the spine, 0, because hips are 0. And I'm going to counter this with the hips. arms. So if this is the extreme and this is the extreme forward, so I'm going to just slightly go like that, and I'm going to start to unfold this, and the wrist is probably going to drag a little bit. I'm going to do the same for the shoulder as well. I'm actually going to zero out this shoulder, and I'm also going to lower it a little bit down. And for the other shoulder, let's go here for the other arm and shoulder. So this is going the other direction, and the shoulder should be helping. I'm going to zero this out as well, and it's also going down. All right. Yeah. So this is going to drag because it was here, and it's going to drag a little bit, and this is going to drag a little bit. Let's also see it from the front view. Now I want to pay your attention at this foot, at the angle of this foot. So I'm going to introduce a little bit of the Z rotation, and it's also going out a tiny bit. I'm also going to move this forward. So you see I have this angle for the head in Z. I'm just going to be a little bit closer to the reference. The knee is traveling forward, so I want this control to travel forward as well. Let's see also for the rotation X. This is the moment where the walk already started, so we don't need to, go down with this, so we start to rotate back. So we already gained the momentum for the walk. We just need to start to normalize this angle. And for the spine in rotation X, I should probably do the same here with the spine. Starting to normalize. Yeah, this should be a little bit more. This is the first section, this is the middle section, and this is the last section. Let's look at rotation X for the head. So I will probably start to go a little bit down. Alright, let's do the down position and the up position. So going back to the same method that we used with the passing position, I know that the down is going to land here, just in the middle. So this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. for the passing, and then 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So between the passing and the up, we have 7 frames instead of 6, because this is just the start of the walk, right? So it's a little bit longer. I'm going to do 4 frames for the up, because going up is going against gravity and it should take a little bit more frames. So this is when I have these uneven segments in the walk. What I do is I prefer to give more frames on the way up. Alright, so we place the up position and the down position. So because this is down, we should be going down. Foot roll this back, and I'm also actually going to select everything and press the S key. And then this foot is rolling a lot. So we had a little bit of the side here. I will start to bring it back. Okay, let's work on the hips and see what's going on. So we did the Y, the X. How much of the X do we want? We want a lot of the X here, because in order to pick up the foot, we need to quickly start adjusting the weight. Something like that. And the same should go for the Z. I can now see what I'm doing in the graph editor as well and just animate in the graph editor. And then for the spine, just make sure I select the spine only. I'm going to probably go the same amount here. And you can see that I'm probably overdoing the down position a little bit too much. So let me actually bring it back slightly. What else? We did see Y. Let's see this Y from this view. So for the Y, it starts to go the other way, this way. But it's not too much because the legs are still on the floor. This leg is on the floor. In X, start to go this way. And yeah, we did everything for the hips. Let's go to the spine and see rotations Y. So they should start going like that. Also a little bit because the hips did a little bit of the Y. And then Z we did. Let's go to see what the X is doing. This is this control. So we'll start our rotation. Something like that. I'm not too concerned about these rotations here. I can see I forgot to do these rotations. First of all, these are small rotations, and then we're going to see when we'll be splining this, we're going to see how the curves will look, and maybe we will adjust if we need anything. We'll adjust it in the curves themselves. So, arms. According to the survival kit, the extreme for the arms is going to be on the down position. However, sometimes I find this is not the case. Here you can see that the arms do not continue to go this way as they were before. They actually start to go back here. So I'm going to start to go back with the arms a little bit. And on the Z, I'm going to start doing this, and on the X, I'm not doing anything on the X just yet. This doesn't matter, it's just a very small amount of rotation. The same with the shoulder, I'm going to do a little bit more with the shoulder, just a tiny bit more, because the shoulder is always leading. And this is going to drag. And this is going to drag too. Let's go to this arm as well. And this arm should start to go in another direction. Like that. And Z. And for the shoulder in Y, a little bit more than the arm, like this. And let's see the front view. Okay, we need to drag this a tiny bit, the neck. And for the head, so I'm going to do a little bit more, just for the drag, like that. And then let's see, with the rotation X, you might want to think that we need to start rotating this way, but this is not the case. So from contact to down, the head is actually still going up. All right, so we have down, and the final thing is the up. So I already have this key for the up, for the Z, so I'm going to select everything, and I'm going to press the S key. And then here, this is the up position, so the first thing that I would do on the up position is go up a little bit. Now, it's important to understand that I can't go up a lot. In the survival kit, this up is very, very high, but this is just to indicate that this is the highest point. In real life walks, I find that the most of the way going up is going to be between the down position and the passing position. I'm going to push it a little bit higher, but we can, go back and adjust it later. After this, I'm going to place this leg, because how I place this leg is actually going to affect the amount of rotation Y that I need to do for the hips. So I'm going to place this leg first. And maybe not as much, something like that. I'm also going to zero out toe tap, and I'm going to place this leg much lower. And then in the front view, it's actually doing something like this. Let me see a translation next. I just adjusted this slightly, so I'm going to adjust this as well. You can see that this is an up position, but you might wonder, why is she going up like this and I'm not going up like this still. I can push it a little bit, but the main thing, just push it a tiny bit like that. But the main thing here is that this is not orthographic projection. She's going towards the camera, so she's getting bigger in the camera all the time. And I want to make sure that the knees are progressing forward, like this. And then let's go to rotation Y and see this relation between the legs. So I'm going to go like that. And for the Z on the up position and also for the X, this is when we start to go the other way. The Z is going a lot in this segment. And for the spine, I'm going to contour this section. So let's see how much we rotated the hips. So this is the hips and this is the spine. So you can see that in the hips we did, actually I think we need to do a little bit more. The same amount of rotation is going to be in this direction here. Yeah, and while we are in this view, let's also make sure that the neck is working. Okay, so if this is going this way, then the head could drag slightly and then go the other way, like that. You can see that we will probably need to do a little bit of the foot roll here, because the leg is probably locked in this angle. And this is the reason why I didn't want to push the up position too high, because you can see in the reference we are not moving up. We start to move up a little bit on this frame, but this is, you know, too much of rotation. So I'm going to bring this back something around this area, and then I'm going to go to the hips, and I'm actually going to make sure that I'm not making it too much of an Y. Maybe we need to lower this down a little bit so we're not blocking the knee here. So something like this, we'll see that in the motion when we spline this, if we are on the right track or not. Okay, for the Y, a lot of action. And then this was dragging a little bit. And now it's going this way. Like that. And this also starts to unfold. So this was dragging. This is still dragging a little bit. And this is where it starts to unfold. In the Z. So what should happen in the Z is the arms are actually going in a little bit of the arc here. So you can see that the arm is going behind the hips a little bit. So I'm going to do this like that. And for this frame, we're going to keep it even more behind. Maybe not as drastic. So this is the furthest point because of the hips, and then once the arm is behind the hips, it's going screen right. And for this arm is going forward. like that. And then the Z axis. It's going to go forward as well. It should be more in front. Should be like that. This is too much as well. Okay. And rotation Y should start to happen here. And also the rotation X for this arm should start to happen as well. And then this is still going to drag a little bit like that in this axis, and I think it's looking pretty decent for the blocking stage. I'm going to push this hand a little bit behind of the body so we can see this motion. Like this. So I'm worrying about the arc of the wrist here. And then the head. So the head on this way up was going down. On the up position, this is when it stops to go down. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to speed up the video. So I'm going to place the keys for the Z, for the passing position, down, up, and do all this animation here, which is basically the same thing that I did here, just for the other steps. So I'm going to speed up everything, and I'm going to stop right around here when this stops being like a usual walk. So the reason I stopped here is because this is where the walk itself changes a little bit, and I want to point out these changes. So first of all, you can see this inclination backwards, and I have a video on my channel which is devoted to physics in animation, and I explain in these videos why this is happening. Now let's take a look at what's happening in the middle on the passing position of this first stride. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So first of all, notice how this leg is much more forward than it usually is on the passing position. So I'm going to replicate this, and the reason why this is happening is because we want this leg as early as we can forward, as far as we can forward, to push against the floor and help stop this momentum of forward movement. Alright, this last step is actually not a step, so we will treat this just as usual pose-to-pose animation. So I'm not going to think about passing positions and down positions and up positions, and more just take a look at what the reference is doing, and just keeping in mind that it's still a walk, it's just not a usual step. So let's go and see what's going on in the middle here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This could be a good frame, or maybe this could be a good frame. So I'm going to key it down here, select everything and S to set the key, and just kind of go on and see what is going on in the reference. So the hips should be going up. And then this leg keep it simple. And then going to push it a little bit more. And then the spine. It's pretty, basically zero, almost zero rotation here. I feel like in this pose the spine continues to go the other way a little bit, just because of inertia. And then this leg. Just a tiny bit. Rotation X. Going to push it more. And in the spine as well. I'm overdoing this X here. Push it a little bit closer to the body, and then this arm just kind of does the same thing, just in the opposite direction. Here's an interesting thing. You can see that this is the final step, right? And there are no steps after this, but still, look at this, what this arm is doing. Our body subconsciously continues to walk forward, even this arm, you see? This is not for balance, this is just subconscious continuing the same motion that was before. So we're going back with this. And then this one. It's going down and then up again. Something like that. Okay, going to bring the reference back in. So basically now we need something that resembles the down position. Let's look really close to the reference. So it's going down and then up, and then a little bit up and then down. So 1, 2, 3, because this is where it starts to go up again. So 1, 2, 3. It's going to be here, and this one up, I will deal with this later. Okay. Down, select everything, press S key. Then go back. And let's make the down. Maybe a little bit more, like that. Foot roll. Foot roll is pretty high. Then rotation Y. Probably in the middle, and rotation Y for the spine. Going to push it, push everything like that. And then Z, rotation in Z, very important. And translation X to free up the weight. And then the spine. Going to counter this. You see, I'm not countering this enough. So something like this. Rotation X. don't forget about rotation X. So you can see again it's going back a little bit and then it goes forward. And the spine should go forward. Then let's do this pose. Yeah, probably let's do it here. Okay, so go and push the up slider so we can go down after this. It should be here. Up and then down. Maybe it's too much, so I'm going to push up here. Yeah. Okay, let's select everything, press the S key, and then let's go back with the X. Starts to go back. I think I'm pushing the translation X a little bit too much. Like from this pose, from here to here. So I'm going to keep it in this area and then probably push this foot a little bit closer. Something like this. Let's see. Here I forgot to roll the foot back, so it should be planted like that. So I can see this rotation in the hip. So I think I'm going to push it more that way, but not as much because the walk stopped. However, there is some inertia in rotations, so I'm going to push it like this, and we can go back after this. You can see how the rotations are going back and forth in this section. K and Z. Starts to go back. We need to move the foot. Then adjust the foot roll. So the key here is to progress the knee forward, even if a tiny bit. All right. So what we have left, let's check the spine. In Z, so it starts to go back like that, and then in Y it's going back this way, and then in X in Z. Going back actually, and then here so it's not going back here as much as usual. And then in Z, let's see what happened here. So this should be going actually up. And then it starts to go down. Yeah. Okay. And then in Z, and then finally the shoulders. So they're going back. And in Z, it starts to go down and then starts to go up a little bit. Pushing up a little bit too much, so I'm going to reduce this. I'm going to reduce this. Shoulder is going down and then it's going up like that. And in Y, it's kind of doing the same thing. Slowing out from here, slowing in here. Nice. Start to roll out. And on the way back. Start to go in a little bit. Start to go this way. We now have the walk. And what we need to do is we need to basically animate this section here. This section is very slow. So first of all, I'm going to focus on this. So 122. Let's make the timeline a little bit bigger. First of all, let's see what's going on in the body itself. So you can see once this leg is being planted, the hips go down a little bit. Even here, they still go down like that. And then there's a little bit of a recoil. So going down and then up and then down and then right, they rotate right, then they rotate left. And that's it. So this is what we're going to replicate here, and the extremes are going to be our keys. So here you can see it starts to go down, and let's see where is this moment. This is the recoil. You see on this frame, down, down, recoil. So just before the recoil, I'm going to key this. And then okay, I keyed everything pressing the S key, so this messed up my animation here. So I'm going to delete this key here and I'm going to insert. So going down a little bit higher, like this. Translation X. Start to go this way. Let's see what happens. Yeah, it seems like I need to be completely over this foot. So the weight is distributed. And I'm going to push the Z like that. And I'm going to do the same here. Actually, before I do that, let's check the Y. The rotation Y. So if we think that this is like a contact position in the walk, the next step should be taken by the left foot. So it should rotate this way a little bit, yeah. And then it rotates that way. So here I'm going to probably do something like this, and I'm going to select the spine, and I'm going to do the opposite in the spine, like that. And then in Z, starting to go in the normal pose. And then X. Rotation in the spine. And for the arms, I'm kind of just going to look at what the reference is doing. So for this arm, it goes like this. Let's go forward, a little bit rotation in this. And of course, I'm going to introduce a little bit of this. Goes down slightly. And then this arm is going back. I'm just keeping an eye on the graph editor so I don't do anything too drastic. Don't forget the foot roll, side like this. Don't forget the shoulder. So the shoulder is going back. And a little bit down. All right. Now let's look at this going up. Let's see how many frames I'm actually going up. 1, 2, 3. And then it starts to go down. 1, 2, 3. It's even less than that. It's like 2.5. But I'm going to probably go with 1, 2, Yeah, I'm going to go with 2. I will place the key only for this. To remind myself that there is an up movement here and then there is a down movement here. So up, 1, 2, 3. And 3 on down. It's actually more like 2.5 up, 2.5 down, but we can't go for between frames. Maya can do this, but we don't want to do this. And let's also see about the rotations and why. So here they probably start a little bit, and then here they continue and they continue probably up until this point. Yeah. So I'm going to rotate them even more like that, and then they go back from here. Okay, let's see what else is changing. Yeah, I have a feeling that translation in Z is stopping here and then it goes back a little bit. So what we're going to do is on this frame we're going to key this the way we have it, and we're going to do this with the key so it stops, and then here I'm going to bring it back ever so slightly. It's almost invisible. Even less. So the hips were rotating forward. They're rotating forward, they're rotating forward. I can do this even more. I can do this even more. Like that. And here I think they should start to go backwards. Just to recoil a little bit. And the spine is going to be affected as well. So the spine was going forward with the hips, and then let's see where these frames are. Probably here. Like that, and then after this we stop and go back with the hips, so we will go back with the spine as well. To counter animate this, I'm inserting the key here and I'm starting to counter animate this a little bit, and then for the last pose I'm going to counter this as well. Let's select everything. This is better done in spline, I think. And for the Y, we have a key here for the hips, so we need a key here for the spine, and when we have a key here for the hips, so we need a key here for the spine, and finally this one for the spine. So we need to counter this a little bit and then select this key, and we need to counter here. And then finally this key, and we need to counter this. And when it goes back, it goes back. And I'm probably overdoing this slightly. So this is probably I'm overdoing a little bit, should be like that. And then after this, just scale down these rotations here. I think it works. Alright, so I'm not going to place any more keys here. What I'm really worried about is these extremes up and down in the rotations in y-axis. Okay, let's Playblast this and see if we need any tiny adjustments before we call it a day. Actually, before we Playblast, we need to bring this translation Z of the hips back to step mode. So I'm going to select translation Z, go to step mode, and now it should Playblast correctly. Okay, so overall feeling is that I'm pushing up and down a little bit too much, so we're going to reduce it throughout all the shot. And let's also do Playblast from the front view. You know, the biggest thing that I'm seeing here is I'm pushing the amount of translation X a little bit too much. So I'm going to reduce the translation X as well. So first of all, I'm going to select these keys here. And these keys here, I'm going to scale them down. And we also wanted to adjust the translation Y as well. Should be a little bit less. These guys could be a little bit less as well. Now you might have noticed that at the end there is a little bit of weirdness happening at the very end here. And the reason why this is happening, if I select everything, you can see that I have a key here and then here, but not on all controls, and here not on all controls. We're going to select everything, switch to spline, and then I will select all the curves, and then I will insert the key on every keyframe that I have. Just to make sure that I'm keying everything. And then after this, I will go back and then switch to step once again, and let's Playblast this and see how it looks now. If you find you are getting some value out of this, please hit the like button. I will see you in the third part when we will be splining our animation. And as always, thank you very much for watching.